in Downing Street. We'll be live at Westminster to get more on that breaking news in the next little while. Now, let us pause for business news and get more on Ukraine. Jonathan is with us. And Jonathan, we've been hearing more from the US in terms of the sanctions as well that they've been outlining.
That's right, Matthew. We'll also have a little bit more on that Boris Johnson mission to India. Hello, everybody there. The US Treasury Secretary says it's been a productive week in Washington. Janet Yellen was talking about the annual spring meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, which aim to help the global economy navigate the various challenges it faces. Yellen said that the US had promised Ukraine another $500 million in immediate support following Russia's invasion, and along with allies, it had agreed to tighten the vice on Russia's economy by stopping it evading sanctions. Here's a bit of what she said.
A significant amount of our focus this week has been on Russia's reckless, devastating, and illegal war in Ukraine, and our allies coming together on what more we can do to support the Ukrainian government and people as they fight for their homeland. This morning, I met with Prime Minister of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal, and I shared with him our continued firm stance alongside Ukraine as they defend their lives and their country. I'm committed to working with our partners and allies to support Ukraine's economic needs in the short term and the long term.
That was the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Our business correspondent Theo Leggett has been watching that as well and joins us now from the business newsroom. Theo, give us a bit more detail about what she's been saying about how the global powers gathering there in Washington are going to help Ukraine and deal with the other challenges that they face.
Well, let's start with that $500 million that Janet Yellen said had been committed to Ukraine. Now, that's money for immediate needs to keep the functions of government going, and it's on top of another $500 million committed earlier in the year. But she made it very clear that that was just the beginning, and that she would be working with the US Congress as the US Budgetary Authority and also with international partners to see what could be done going forward, because she said that the cost of the war and the cost of the rebuilding process in Ukraine would be enormous. And on that point, she was asked by one journalist whether assets that had been seized from Russia or that were blocked by sanctions could be used to mitigate some of the costs of the war. She was rather non-committal on that one. She said that the legalities hadn't been worked out, but that in the longer term, the costs would be enormous and that there would be a look towards Russia to make up some of those costs. She was also asked about whether or not Europe should be working harder to block off Russian exports of oil and gas. Now, Europe, of course, is highly dependent on Russian oil and gas, in particular gas. And she made the point that although it would be desirable in the medium term to stop buying these products from Russia, obviously Russia is gaining hundreds of millions of dollars every day in revenue from these exports. She said that if that was done too quickly, it would simply push up the price of oil. That would have consequences elsewhere, and it would also benefit Russia because the price it could charge for its goods would be higher.
Theo Leggett, our business correspondent, thank you very much for that. Now let's move on. The British Prime Minister, as I was just saying, Boris Johnson, says he hopes that the UK and India can agree a free trade deal by the end of this year. He's on a 2-day visit to the country to promote deeper ties, which he says can create thousands of new jobs. However, India has a track record of taking many years to agree any new trade deal. And there are disagreements between the two countries, with his counterpart Narendra Modi over Western sanctions that are designed to affect Russia's economy. Now, Mr. Johnson is beginning his trip in the city of Ahmedabad in Gujarat, and our correspondent Nikhil Indamar is there with the latest.
Big bang business deals, that's been the sharp focus of Prime Minister Boris Johnson's first day here in India, with about £1 billion worth of agreements that have been announced, with a proposal to create about 11,000 jobs in the UK. Now, the fact that he's chosen Gujarat as his first port of call in India also very, very significant, because this is the state that's home to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also the big British Gujarati diaspora that resides in the UK. The Prime Minister has had a hectic day today. He started off at the Sabarmati Ashram, which was home to Mahatma Gandhi, followed that up with a visit to the JCB factory, which is really seen as a model collaboration in business between India and the UK, and then ended with a visit to the Akshardham temple. But the big diplomatic agenda would be accomplished tomorrow when he meets with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where there's everything on the table from defense and security ties to economics and trade in particular, because India and the UK have been negotiating a free trade agreement with a hope to conclude it by the end of this year.
Nicola Lindemark with the latest on Boris Johnson's trip to India there. Just one other business story this hour. The governor of Russia's central bank has been reappointed for a third term in office. The State Duma, or the lower house of parliament, has given Elvira Nabiullina another 5 years as she tries to steer the economy through an unprecedented crisis. Russia's invasion of Ukraine means the economy is suffering from widespread sanctions. Prices and interest rates have both been rising sharply. Last month, the Kremlin said a third term for Ms. Nabiullina would help to maintain macroeconomic stability in the country. And that's all the business for now. There's plenty more at bbc.com/business. But for now, Matthew, back to you.
Jonathan, thanks very much. Thank you. Now, do stay with us.